Yo, Elliot, I'm 26 now and find myself in a strange place. Isabella, my girlfriend of over a year, passed away. She got very sick. Doctors don't even have an answer. And she spent her last days dying in a hospital bed in an induced coma. We had numerous plans for the future, and she was raised a Catholic. We were both going to church together and making that a part of our lives. Out of nowhere, my life was uprooted, and it's tearing me up. I was planning on proposing by the end of the year and spending the rest of my life with her. We had plans to leave this communist state. We had plans to leave the communist state of California and have a somewhat simple life in the South, but now I feel like I have no direction. I keep working my job, which I'm growing to resent. I will never be enough in this state, and now I am without my biggest supporter, and it's killing me. I have a very small circle of friends, and I find myself tending to pull away and wanting to be alone and doing my hobbies all by myself. I know that it's not healthy for me mentally, but it feels safe, yet I see the possible disaster. What the hell do I do? Do I just quit my job, move and see what happens, or keep planning even though I feel like I'll never take action? I feel like I know the answer, but I'm probably just being a pussy. Thank you, Elliot. So, the very first thing that I want to offer you is that it's okay to mourn. In your email, you mentioned that she passed away 2 months ago. And that literally was like yesterday in the big scheme of things. You were with this girl for over a year, and you were making all these kinds of plans for your future. And then you were throwing a curveball in this situation. And so before moving forward with any kinds of, consolence or ideas about how you may move forward, I want to kind of say you don't need to move forward that fast. There's no reason to get over it that quickly. Allow yourself to be in mourning. Allow yourself to be sad. Be in that fully. Because if we resist that natural inclination towards mourning, which is something that was honored much more greatly in our ancestors' time, right? And if you look at it from a religious perspective, even there are religious rituals associated with mourning, meaning like there's a time period that's given, an allotment of time period given for a person to actually just sink into that emotion of that loss, fully feel the loss, fully feel your sadness, your grief, your pain. Because if we try to escape it, we try to numb it, we try to pretend it's not there, or we try to get over it too quickly, what happens is it sits in us like a seed, and at some point, sometimes in a very strange way or strange circumstance, it comes up and it usually comes up in a perverted way. And then we were talking about PTSD a couple weeks ago, and how if we don't deal with what's in front of us as far as like challenge, trauma, situations that are hurtful, if we don't deal with it right away, if we don't confront it right away, if we don't allow ourselves to go through the convulsions, like I was talking about, going through the convulsions right away, it doesn't disappear, right? It doesn't go away. It seeps in, and then it starts to manipulate us from the shadow. So I just want to bring that to the forefront for you. If that gives you the peace of mind to allow yourself to sob, to sigh, to feel sorry, that's okay. And at a particular point, as with all wounds, it heals. And once it's healed, it's healed. Once it's healed, you don't pick that scab no more. Do you get where I'm coming with that? In terms of allowing yourself to fully feel that sadness, fully be in mourning, but then be done with it. At a particular point, you'll know when it's time to be done with it. And then you don't pick that scab again because you've allowed it to heal. You gave it what it needed, and then you can move on. We never want to have half-healed wounds that we end up picking scabs on later and they grow infected, right? So be fully immersed in this. You're a young man and you were making good decisions and you seem to have had a good partner and you seem to have been well on your way to creating a good life for yourself and a good life for her. But the Lord saw it fit to, number one, bring her home for whatever reason. God's wisdom is much greater than ours. This is one of the problems with people that say, oh, why would God do X, Y, Z? It's because they imagine that their mind is like God's. You have only not even a fraction of the wisdom of God. God's thinking with eternal perspective. We're thinking about, the drop in the bucket. What am I going to eat today, right? This is how we're thinking. He's thinking millennia. He's thinking eternal, right? Infinity. It's an infinite mind. And so if you have faith, you know that the infinite mind is always moving towards order, right? Even if it looks like chaos in our life. That's why God is called Father. Father comes from the word paternity. Paternity comes from the word pattern. Pattern is what? Pattern is the order. Pattern is not the thing, it's where the thing is emerging from, right? Or moving towards a perfect order, a blueprint, if you will. So with that perspective, allow yourself to be mortified, offer up your pain as penance, and have faith that everything is working out perfectly for you. Doesn't mean that you're not in pain, doesn't mean that you're not suffering, doesn't mean that you shouldn't mourn, but from the eternal perspective, from the infinite perspective, all things are unfolding perfectly. All things are unfolding perfectly for all of us. That's why it makes no sense to complain about what's going on in the world if you don't like it. There's no sense of complaining because God's in control. So there's that, right? God wanted to call home the young lady that you have fallen in love with and were ready to build a life with. But at the same time, he's looking at you. He knows your heart and he's testing you, just like lift that shit or keep or die trying. You know that video that I made? God lays various challenges that are specific to our weaknesses on us at opportune times. And so this is an opportunity for you to grow stronger through the challenge. It doesn't mean toughen up, right? And I almost feel like I'm contradicting myself a lot of times, right? It doesn't mean just bite down and bury it down. It means feel it fully so much so that you could be done with it and that it nourishes you rather than destroys you. And in this time frame, in this period of mourning and gaining perspective, because they kind of work hand in hand. It's like mourning and perspective. In that time period, I don't think it's necessary to know exactly what you're going to do next, right? Because you want to move on, and it's totally valid. You gotta move on. At some point, you need to move on. At some point, you will naturally just move on. And I want you to have faith in that as well. Because a lot of times we put pressure on ourselves. And I know you say here that you don't know what to do. Should I quit my job? Should I move and see what happens? Or keep planning even though I feel like I'll never take action? The fact is that you don't need to do anything. You are exactly where you need to be. Sit with the experience and be available for revelation. Be available to receive what is next. I think that's so important for us all the time as men, but particularly when we're at these points of crisis, where as action takers, right? That's what men do. We see a problem and we want to fix it. We want to fix the problem right away. We want to do something about the problem right away. It's in our nature to want to remedy stuff, right? This is what men do. But at the same time, the sentiment from which that proceeds often is fear, anxiety, worry. There's a lot of things that we're doing that don't come from a restful place, or better yet, a place of trust, a place of faith. And faith and trust are a bit of a, I don't want to say passive because you have to open yourself up to it, but it's kind of letting go. It's kind of allowing. It's more of a perceptive way of being rather than an aggressive way of being. And this is where we get to sort of balance our, if you will, feminine energies as a man, right? And I don't even know that's the right way to call it, but we have a yin aspect that is nourishing because it's yielding, because it doesn't burn us out, because it's cool, because it's relaxed, right? It's very alpha to be that way. So I wouldn't put too much pressure on myself. Even calling yourself a pussy, like I already know what the answer is. I'm just being a pussy. There's a lot of self-judgment there, and you're kind of like beating yourself up. And I would offer that the least you could beat yourself up, the more you could stay away from beating yourself up and pressuring yourself in this movement and moment, the more you're going to be perceptive, the more you're going to be open, the more you're going to be available for God to lead you into this next season in your life. And I think, look, if you were all of a sudden now allowing the love that you had for this young woman to motivate you to have a deeper relationship with Christ, then you should continue to develop that deeper relationship with Christ. A lot of times, I'm talking high ideals, but I'm not afraid to consider the dark aspect of the war that we're in. And a part of what may be going on, because it's a spiritual battle, is that Satan sees what was going on with you and her and your movement towards the light. And as a result, they always say that when you're trying to get your life together, you're trying to do the right thing, you're making the right decisions, and boom, that's when disaster strikes. And there are those that believe that because your demon is watching you, he's getting frustrated because he realizes he's about to lose your soul. Satan wants your soul. Just the same way that God wants your soul, there's a battle for your soul. And right now, with the situation you're in and the spiral down that you could potentially go, Satan could just be stealing your soul. So you could use this also as motivation to add fuel to the fire of your faith. Use it as an opportunity. You were thinking about getting married, right? And I'm just ranting. I'm just giving you ideas. I'm just talking right now. You were thinking about getting married, and I like to liken marriage and thinking about the two sides of the same coin to being a monk, right? Because to be married is to be fully dedicated until death to this individual and what we're going to create together. But on the flip side of that is that marriage, the divine marriage, that marriage to the Creator, that marriage to God the Father, that marriage to Christ, that we can dedicate, devote ourselves in the same way as a father would as his vocation, a man who's dedicated to a life in Christ. St. Paul says it. He even says it. He says it. I don't know not that I need to agree with him, but when I'm listening to him, I'm like, wow, this guy is so based. St. Paul says, be like me, be like me. He said, if you have to marry, marry. But otherwise, he says, if you can control, and really what it is about controlling your sexual energy, you can control your sexual energy, transmutate it, and use it for spiritual evolution, communion with God the Father. So, in a way, a lot of doors have opened up for you, right? And this is just perspective, right? I'm not making light of your situation, but in a lot of ways, new doors have opened up for you as a result of this loss. And so if you could take that perspective, right? The content is not so important as the context, but if you can move from that context, that this is an opportunity, that things are opening up for me, that everything's unfolding perfectly for me, and that there's a big reason why, and so on and so forth, that's operating from a resourceful place. That's operating from a place of optimism, a place of faith, as opposed to depression, right? And being black-pilled and being nihilistic, which is so fashionable these days, right? That gets you nowhere. It's interesting because I'm not even, a lot of times We want to vie for what's right? I want to be right. You want to be right. Sometimes it's not even about right because it's hard to prove certain things that are true. It's better to ask yourself, is this resourceful, right? Is it right? Or correct, or meaning like, it's true, is a good question. It's a great question. It's something that should be at the forefront of our mind. But at the same time, what is the utility of these things that we either engage in or disengage with? Is it a good idea? And so these are just what I believe are resourceful ideas that will help you keep your faith, maintain your sanity, and keep moving in the face of this challenge, bro. And I think things are gonna work out great for you. So I wish you the best. Hope that helps. Done.
Yo, it's your bro Elliot. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, you ought to know that it was a clip from one of my most recent King Transformation classes with my students, where among other things, we get together about 4 or 5 hours a week and we speak on things as it relates to becoming kings in our lives in fitness, business, and with women. If that sounds like you and you want to join a like-minded group of men who are growing stronger every day in every way in this degenerate age, then it's real simple. Just follow me on Instagram and then DM me the word King, K-I-N-G, and then me and my team will get back to the details to see if you qualify. I really hope to see you at the next meeting. Done.